شوف that's more effective with this one.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you everyone for being here. This is a very important night. We're talking about mental health, which is often a somber but very important topic. Before we begin, let's invite our Sheikh, Imam Ibrahim, to come up and give some dua and Quran.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Before I start the recitation, may Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala bless this gathering. May Allah reward our Dr. Golewale and Dr. Huma and Sister Zahra and Dr. Hadiya and Sister Aisha and everyone who attended today. May Allah reward you all for being here. This is an important topic and an important service as a necessity for our community. We were hoping to be able to do that and to accomplish that, and alhamdulillah, finally today we are launching and we're starting this service by this event. May Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala bless those who work behind the scenes, and may Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala benefit from our dear brother and sister, Dr. Huma and Dr. Golewale. It is a pleasure to have them in our community. It is a pleasure to be able to serve this community at large. This is a very important topic when we're talking about mental health and being sound mentally as Muslims. This is something basically a foundation for any Muslim. We should be mentally sound, and we should have and maintain that healthy situation of our mental, and as well we're taking care of our spirit, but this is also has to do with our taklif. As you all know, taklif means the obligation that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala put it on every and each single Muslim. If we're not sound as Muslims from our mental perspective, if there is a problem or sickness or illness, that means that taklif could be dropped. And that is why this is really important for us to address it, to approach it, and to be able to fix or to resolve any problem and to treat it the best way, since it is a necessity, since a lot of community members are actually having some types of that or portion of it or percentage of it. Then we have to address it, and we have to acknowledge and to admit that we have that. There's nothing wrong with that, along with being able to give that service to get over these problems. Khalil Center is there, but Khalil Center has a lot of huge demand. So we are, as ICW, as organizations, as masajid, we're trying our best to support by having at least our local resources, and we're really very blessed and honored and privileged to have Dr. Golewale and Sister Huma. So with that said, I ask Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala to make it successful, beneficial, and to reward everyone inshallah, and to give a good health and a quick recovery for those who are suffering from that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يوم يتذكر الإنسان ما سعى وبرزت الجحيم لمن يرى فأما من طغى وآثر الحياة الدنيا فإن الجحيم هي المأوى وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى فإن الجنة هي المأوى. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. صدق الله العظيم. جزاكم الله خير.
Jazakallah, Shaykh. As always, very remarkable, and definitely what he's saying is correct. This problem is very prominent in the youth. And I would also want to just say that the youth struggles with this a lot, so I'm very grateful for both of you being here tonight. So alhamdulillah for that, and Jazakallah, Shaykh, for your beautiful Quran recitations. Now we're going to move on to our president, Brother Antar. If we can, is he around or? Okay, guess not. Well, that's okay. Then we will continue with our program, inshallah. And I would like to introduce to you our first speaker for tonight. Of course, the Sheikh talked about him a little bit, but I want to give a proper bio as well. So Dr. Mazher Golewale is a board-certified general psychiatrist, and he has been practicing psychiatry and behavioral health science since 2008. His office is located in Oakbrook Terrace, and he treats a variety of mental health conditions, including problems with mood, anxiety, psychosis, substance abuse, and the list goes on, mashallah. He does live in Wheaton with his wife and 2 children, and there is a website where I'm sure he will definitely touch on. So without further ado, let us bring on Dr. Golewale up here for his speech.
Assalamu alaikum. Many of you know me already, so I don't have to go on with my bio. Excuse me. I'm good. You know, when the administration approached me on this topic to talk about mental health, I was really thinking, it's like so vast. What am I going to do here in 15 minutes? So I have come up with few points that I'm going to share with you today. There is something that I really like. I like the stats, the numbers, right? Anybody in accounting here or work with numbers? Excellent. I knew he's the one, but I was thinking if any other hands would go up. But when I give you the numbers of the state of mental illness in this country, you will be shocked. And it is across the board. And I'm going to go into that in a little bit. So let's first see what is mental health. Mental health is well-being in emotional, psychological, and social aspect of a person's life. That's mental health. And what is mental illness is any change in social, psychological, and emotional aspect of that person that leads to significant interference in his social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. So, you know, we do get anxiety, we do get nervousness or sadness based on the circumstances in our lives, but they do not significantly interfere generally with our day-to-day functioning. But when they start to do that, that's when it becomes a mental illness that needs to be treated and needs to be seen by someone who deals with those problems. Let me give you some stats And these stats are available to you. You can go on the website, go to the National Institute of Mental Health and look at these stats. If you look at any mental illness, 1 in 4 people in this country have mental illness. 25%. If you look at serious mental illness, that is 1 in approximately 24. So it's there, and it is across the board regardless of your race, your country of origin, your faith, gender, age, regardless of that. In fact, 75% of the mental illnesses happen before the age of 24. Before you hit 24 years of your life, 75% of the mental illnesses are diagnosed. And that's why it is very serious, because young people don't want to go get help. And that's when they start getting into the substances and so on, which Dr. Pandit is going to talk about. What I'm going to give you is a little bit more stats just on depression. And I will tell you, give you a little bit different definition of depression also. But just to give you an idea, just in United States, I'm giving you a conservative number, approximately 15 million people suffer from clinical depression, also known as major depressive disorder. 15 million people. That's the conservative number. What about anxiety disorders? 30% of United States population. 30%. We have 330 million people in this country. Just imagine 30% of that. So how many people are sitting in this room right now? So 1/3 of this room has some form of anxiety disorder. Whether you are getting help or not, that's a different story. I'm not going to ask each one of you, but you have it or have had it sometime in your past. 30%. Just quickly, I don't want to take too much time. I may have 15 minutes or 10 minutes left. Quickly tell you what is depression. Depression is a syndrome. It should not be confused with sadness. Sadness is one symptom when you feel down. Depression is a syndrome, which is a constellation of symptoms that includes sadness, loss of interest or pleasure in the things that you enjoyed before, change in your sleep, change in your eating habits, fatigue, psychomotor retardation, which is slowness of your movements, inability to concentrate, feelings of worthlessness or excessive guilt about things that you have no control, and even thoughts of suicide. Thoughts of suicide, and these people, if they are not treated, they go on to attempt suicide. So, in this country, and I'm giving you old stats, out of 100,000, approximately, I think it was somewhere in the range of 15 to 20 people commit suicide every year. And since this pandemic, it has gone way up. Has gone up, both in adults and in adolescents. So that's clinical depression. And you have to have these symptoms for at least 2 weeks. And these symptoms significantly interfere with your social, occupational, and other areas of your functioning. So that's your clinical depression. And we psychiatrists, we call them major depressive disorder. And WHO has said major depression is a leading cause of disability worldwide. Worldwide, not just in United States, worldwide. And people coming from Southeast Asia, we don't want to go get help because we think this is all your weakness, it's all in your head. Yes, it is in your head, literally. That's why you should go get help, because you can't see it. So that's the depression. What about anxiety? Anxiety is a broad term that can be categorized into worry and fear and then panic. So worry is about that you are apprehensive about something that may happen in future. You just worry about it. You're apprehensive about it. Whereas fear is an emotional reaction to something that is imminent, that is going to happen right now. And then panic is the intense form of anxiety where your heart starts beating really fast, your breathing goes up, your hands start shaking, trembling, sweating, and you feel like you're going to pass out. That is a panic attack. And people often end up in the ER thinking that they have a heart attack. You just feel like that. Your chest becomes tight, you start sweating, you cannot breathe, you feel like smothering. Sometimes people may be driving on the highway, they have to pull over and call 911, and they end up in the hospital, in the ER, and they get worked up as if they had a coronary artery disease event, like a myocardial infarction, they call it heart attack. And then they get sent to a psychiatrist, and then we come into action. So that's anxiety and panic attacks. There is bipolar disorder, where I talked about the depression, right? In bipolar disorder, sometimes, not very often, just sometimes here and there, you have these few days where you feel really on top of the world, like a Superman. You got a lot of energy, you don't feel like you need much sleep, you start spending money, start driving fast, start traveling, buying new car, buying new clothes, buying things that you can't afford to, run out of your credit cards, max out on them. And it happens very rarely, not like too often. So oftentimes patients come to us stating like, I just have depression. But they may have bipolar depression, which is some, another thing that we deal with. And maybe a few more minutes, then I will stop. Then we have a condition called schizophrenia or psychosis, where people start hearing voices. And these voices, they don't know these voices are fake. They think that really someone is talking to them. And they start responding to these voices as if there is a conversation going on between them and this voice. And they feel like people are looking at them funny, they are out to get them, they are plotting against them. And this is really, that's how they feel. And they don't want to talk about it because they fear that people would think they are crazy, quote unquote crazy. And they can go on with this for many, many years, and then they start self-medicating themselves with alcohol, cannabis, smoking, and all sorts of other drugs that are out there. I don't even have to go into that. Just the alcohol, let me give you this stat. Any idea how much money is lost just on alcohol in this country every year? And this is 12-year-old stat. 12-year-old. Can anybody make a wild guess? How much money we spend on problems related to alcohol, alcohol-related deaths, accidents, physical health problem, loss of jobs, loss of life. $250 billion. 250. If you actually go online and look at the budget of 150 countries in the world, they don't even have a budget of one full year. So that much money is lost just on alcohol-related problems. So, the problems are enormous, but alhamdulillah, there is help available. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the administration. They have come up with a project. They want to help the people in the community who may have this problem, but they are not coming forward either because they are hesitant, they don't want to come out weak, or they don't know where to go get help, maybe for a variety of reasons. But there is a verse in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you do not know, ask the expert. So, it's just like when your car breaks down, do you think that you can fix it? Unless you are a mechanic yourself. And then that too, you have to have all the tools, right? So, but why not when it comes to mental health? Why don't we have the same attitude? For some reason we don't. But our deen tells us that you should go get help. So with that, I will stop. There are so many things that we can talk about, but maybe we can answer some questions in the question answer session. And so please, feel free to ask questions at that time. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope I was able to convey at least a little bit. Obviously, like as I said, there are a lot of things that can be discussed. But inshallah, maybe in the question answer. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much, Dr. Golewale. Definitely, it's very important to have an overview of what mental health illness can look like and what the symptoms can look like. So definitely, this is very important. So Jazakallah khair for the brief overview. And we will most likely go deeper into these issues later on, especially because I know we'll have questions, inshallah. Next, I would like to bring up Dr. Huma Pandit, who has been certified and she's worked with children, but she is a psychiatrist as well and has worked with a variety of audiences, and she has been helping specifically with children, but she has a lot to say regarding adolescence, and I am very curious to see what you have to say too as well regarding mental health. So if you can join me in applauding and welcoming her on, please do that. Without further ado, Dr. Huma Pandit.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. The state of the room kind of explains how we view mental health. You can see it. This room should have been full, and it's not. It's a pressing issue in our community, and we are not addressing it. So I am, first of all, thankful to the administration here at ICW that they've taken this initiative of tackling this issue and addressing it as it is a pressing need in the community. That being said, I'm going to talk about some specific things here today. Let's see how we operate this. Ain't working. I mean, we'll try to do what we can. I think we are having some AV issues. Okay. So just to give you a little bit of background, I am a community psychiatrist. I've been working in the Hinsdale and Wheaton area for the last 15 years. I have my own practice. I specialize in seeing children, but I'm also an adult psychiatrist, and a special area of my interest is women's mental health issues. When we talk about child and adolescent psychiatry, it's a very, very broad term. There are various disorders that come under the umbrella. Neurodevelopmental being one of them, which means disorders which occur in kids right at the time of their birth. One of the big ones out there is autism spectrum disorders that you must be aware of, intellectual disability, ADHD, and learning disorders. Children are not any different from adults in terms of having any kind of major mental health issues. They suffer from the same disorders that adults do. The presentation, albeit maybe a little different in them. So as far as mood disorders go, major depression, anxiety disorders, OCD, substance abuse, which has been rampant. You can see nowadays with a lot of these cannabis shops opening up, vaping, and more discreet ways that the kids can use the substances out there. Eating disorders, particularly common in the younger girls and ladies that I see quite a bit and we treat. So these are main areas. I just wanted to give you an overview. I'm not going to be talking in depth about these disorders, just wanting you to be aware of what is out there, what kind of help is available for you if you want to seek it. Then a special area of interest for me is women's mental health issues. I do see a lot of women across the board. Men and women are not different when it comes to psychiatric conditions and disorders. We are afflicted with same conditions, women even more than men because we have children, we have additional stresses as well. I'm going to have a separate talk so that women in our community will be able to ask questions, feel more comfortable talking about it in depth, and we'll be going over it in subsequent sections. I also wanted to talk about what the whole goal was. Why did we want to do this project, and what was the implication of using ICW as a community? Now, from times immemorial, you must, if people who are well versed in history know that a masjid is supposed to be a center where people can come in, they can talk about things. It has to be a safe space for people where they know that the information that they're going to share here is confidential, it stays within it, and they are provided with resources that they can use on a daily basis. So, having it in the masjid was ideal. It made sense. We also hope that we can have early interventions in terms of medications and therapy. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and as Dr. Golewale gave you some of the stats, 75% of the disorders occur in childhood, begin in childhood. So if we catch them early, we will be able to make a difference in the long run. I have been working in the Chicagoland area with the school systems, and I'm hoping especially for kids who need additional support and help within the school systems, I can advocate for them and help them and guide them. Our bigger goal is to have optimal development of children. The mind, body, and soul cannot be separated. It's all holistic. It has to be together. And we are hoping that our youth are going to have more satisfying relationships going forward, and hopefully have successful adaptation and active participation in the community. Now, a topic I wanted to touch upon and make the main focus of the talk today is suicide. There are alarming statistics out there, and again, Dr. Golewale did bring up some of them. Suicide is the second leading cause of death in the age group from 18 to 34. And I was appalled when I read an article in JAMA recently which talked about Muslim mental health. Rarely people talk about Muslim mental health, especially in this country. I think the work has just started, and we have just started moving in that direction where more research is being done and brought up. This article came out of Stanford, and what they looked at was the statistics of suicide attempts in Muslims as compared to other faiths or agnostics or people who don't follow any religion. And what they found was it was twice as far as attempts go. I mean, we should take a moment here and try to think about it. How serious is the issue that is affecting our community? And if we don't want to address the elephant in the room, we are just in total denial. We have to remove our blinders and tackle it head on and think about it in terms of preventable condition. It's 100% preventable condition that we need to address. If a timely intervention happens and proper care is given, it's 100% preventable. I cannot tell you how many times I have my patients who come to me and tell me, it was that one phone call that my friend made. Just talking to the friend for 10 minutes made the difference in my life, and I did not do it. So it's important that as parents, you're aware, as adults, you're aware of what's going on in the community, and reach out to each other, not superficially. Be kind to each other, talk to them, ask them how they are doing. I want to talk about the risk factors out there for suicide. And, this is all research backed. And we know that anybody, any person who has had a recent loss, especially in kids, like if they lose a parent, mother dies in a car accident, or father passes away suddenly, or their friend passes away in school systems, kids who are in the school system here, their friend passes away or commits suicide for that matter, that's a big risk factor and can put them or predispose them to suicide. In 90% of the cases who attempt suicide, there's an underlying identifying viable psychiatric condition. If somebody has self-harmed previously or attempted suicide previously, they're more likely to attempt it. So those are things that parents or family members need to be aware of. Now, if there is family history of suicide, somebody in the family has attempted suicide, they are predisposed to attempting it themselves as well, because it removes that inhibition that a person may have. My brother did it. They got away from all the troubles in the world. I can do it too. If there's abuse going on in the family in terms of domestic violence, domestic abuse, or even parental abuse going on, this is a quick solution that they think, of a temporary problem. Some people have difficulty getting help. A huge portion of our community is immigrant community. They're in a new country, they don't know how to go about getting the resources and help that they need. A lot of them also have language issues. They don't know how to communicate, and that's an issue as well. Socially, lack of support, right? If anything, this pandemic has taught us is reaching out to each other, talking to each other, and being together for each other. So when a person feels that if I go away, and I'm not here, it's not going to make a difference in anybody's life, I'm better off dead. Bullying in school, which can happen, Islamophobia, after 9/11, people saw that there was an increase in that as well. And people were more prone to having depression and suicidal attempts as well. And the biggest thing, which we can see right here in this room, is the stigma around asking for help. You don't want to be associated with people who have depression or anxiety, because that doesn't happen in our society or in our community. It's not part of us. Who are we bluffing? I mean, the stats are kind of pointing in the other direction. People who have substance abuse issues are also at higher risk because, when they use, they sometimes feel totally out of control and can do things impulsively. Access to guns and pills is also, a predisposing factor and can affect people. That's a first question I'll ask people. Do you have access to guns? And if you have access to guns, can you put them in a safe place, where we know that you're not going to be harming yourself? Because all it takes is one shot, and there's no turning back from there. Now, I don't want to just talk about the negative stuff. I think it's also important to talk about what factors are protective. And if we strengthen the protective factors, we are going to decrease the statistics. Big among them is strong connections to family and friends. It is important for us as parents to reach out to our children and ask them how their day is going, what's going on in their lives. Open your eyes. Just don't let them be on the phones all the time, interacting just on social media. You need to sit with them, talk with them, and connect with them at an individual level. Each kid is different. What works for one kid may not work for another kid. So you have to find ways to engage them. Kids who have problem-solving abilities are less likely to, hurt themselves. Restricted access to guns and pills, a big one, and a protective factor for Muslims, obviously, is cultural and religious beliefs that discourage suicide. Islam prohibits suicide, we all know that, and a lot of time, and it's across the board, not just Islam, but other religions as well, where people will come and tell me, doctor, I was going to hurt myself, but I know that I would go to hell if I would do that. So it is definitely a protective factor and helps. Access to interventions, this is key. So, like we said, Khalil Center is overloaded and overbooked. The wait there is about 4 or 5 months to get to see people. So we have to provide this access so that we can catch things in a timely manner and be able to address the issues that people are suffering. People who are future-oriented, who have good self-esteem and a sense of purpose are less likely to harm themselves. I want to talk about the teen-tween years, right? As the kids are transitioning and transforming and growing. It's a tough time. We all have been through it. It's even harder nowadays with kids being exposed to so much on a regular basis. Social media has changed lives for people. Popularity is based on how many likes they're getting on their Instas on a daily basis. Kids are gradually at this stage growing distant from their family members and distancing themselves. There's concern about appearances. How do I look? How are my peers viewing me? There's strong and swinging emotions. Parents will tell me one day they're feeling fine and the next day the kid is crying or they have a huge tantrum. It's hard for them to manage their emotions because their bodies are going through changes which are hormonally related. Trying on different identities. Kids want to be like their influencer, follower, whoever is on their account. Lack of consideration for consequences. You have to keep in mind that for kids, their brains are not completely developed. Their brain continues to develop, especially the frontal part of the brain. It continues to develop till age 21. So the choices and impulsivity is part of this time of the life. And they can make sometimes very impulsive choices. So as a parent, you need to be on the watch. You can't let your guard down. It doesn't mean invading their personal space, but at a distance, keeping a healthy watch on what your kid is going through, who are they interacting with, who are they associating with on a daily basis. So if you find that your child is suddenly anxious and on edge after being online, they're more irritable, and the irritability is not like once a week kind of a thing, but happening every few weeks. That's a concern, and that needs to be addressed and brought up. They're secretive in general, and they hide what they're watching. Sometimes they will search means of wanting to hurt themselves online as well. So keeping tabs on, and making sure you have protective stuff installed on their phones so you can access that anytime is important. They're getting more withdrawn. They're just isolating themselves in their room all the time. That's something to watch out for. And the big red flags, when is the time to actually reach out to somebody other than yourself, somebody who's more qualified and who can help you in that process, is when they're self-harming. Self-harm is huge. I see it every single day. Girls more so than boys, but it is present across the board. They are having suicidal thoughts or ideations. Again, increased withdrawal. They don't even want to get out of the bed. They don't want to go to school. They're refusing to go to school. These are concerns that need to be addressed. And a big indicator in kids is when their grades start dropping. You know, that is decrease in their functionality that you're going to see. They're having changes in their sleeping and eating patterns, which means they're up all night and they're sleeping all day, or suddenly they've gained 20 pounds, or they're not eating at all and they've lost 20 pounds. Again, you need to kind of look at it that way. Or there is increased crying for every single reason they start crying. And then depression and anxiety, obviously a healthcare professional who's trained in it can help you navigate through this. So when a kid is struggling, how do you address it? Parents will tell me, what do we do? It comes as a shock. You don't know how to address it. What do you do in a situation like this? It's important to stay calm. Because if you're calm, you're less likely to be accusatory. You're less likely to point fingers at them and tell them, only if you had prayed, only if you had done all your salah regularly, you wouldn't be feeling like this. This is not a time to talk about this. This is a time to address things a little differently. You have to be empathic. You have to kind of, at times, even be quiet and just be there for them. Minimize conflicts. Parents sometimes are not on the same page when it comes to addressing these issues. Dad is saying one thing, mom is saying another thing, and they're fighting in between. So it's important to team up and address the issues together. You're a team and you have to work together to help your child navigate this. Find positive ways to connect and stay in touch. You know, take the kid out on a walk. Do something like go on a bowling game. Or take the kid out to watch a game somewhere where you feel like they might be able to talk more openly than just questioning them every now and then. Know your kids' friends. It is very important to know who your kids associate with on a regular basis, because they can at times also be lifesavers. Talk openly about it. It's a very scary topic, but it's important to talk about it. It should be a dinner table conversation where you open up and talk about it. And if the means of communication are open in the home, less likely that these things are going to be hidden from you. And obviously, in the long run, if things are not working, it's important to seek help. I wanted to talk about, and give you some examples of how to frame it. Sometimes we don't know as parents what to say and how to say it. You can always begin by saying, I've noticed that you've been isolating in your room. It seems like maybe you're going through a hard time. I really want to hear what's happening to you. I'm right here for you and I love you. They need to hear these words that I love you, because they're not hearing it. It means, if they're not hearing it, it means that they have it in their mind, nobody cares. It might feel like you're alone, but you're not. We can do whatever you need. And sometimes kids don't feel opening up to their parents. That's where, you have to seek the help of a counselor or a therapist who can assist you in this. Using the right words is important. There are some digital resources that I use for my patients that have been helpful. It's the age of, social media and digital stuff, and they work very well. Calm is an app I always recommend for people who have anxiety issues or who have trouble falling asleep at nighttime. It is guided, it helps you, it teaches you deep breathing, and works very well with a lot of people. That's something you can try. There's a gratitude journal. Again, it is an app that people can use. People can also use it manually. I mean, you can write things that you're thankful for on a daily basis. Happy Me for young people. Calm Harm works very well. It teaches kids how to distract themselves when they are having an overwhelming moment and how they can move away from it. My three is more like your core connections. Who can I reach out in terms if I need some additional help? Virtual Hope Box is a great one. You know, it's a hope box where kids will put in things like, pictures, memories, things that they have collected over years and that bring them joy. So sometimes it's a matter of those 5-10 minutes which can distract them from the overwhelming thoughts and take them away from the worst possible scenario. Pacifica for stress and anxiety is another one that I use that works very well. Now there is something to be said about a therapeutic safety plan. That's usually a therapist will sit down and make a contract with the patient about helping them identify triggers and then jotting them down. Looking at coping skills that they can use in that moment to help them. Sometimes I tell the patients to make a real coping box where they can put in things that bring in joy and help them distract. There are live chats available that can be used on a regular basis. 741-741 has 24/7 service available. It's a live line where they can chat with a person, a healthcare professional who is trained in tackling suicide and suicide attempts, and sometimes just having that at the tip of your fingertips can make a difference. And above all, what is important is the National Suicide Prevention phone number, which is 24/7 available. You can reach out to them anytime if it's an emergency. Do not wait on things when things are totally out of control. It's important to address them, because if you wait, it may lead to ending somebody's life. And what is important for us is to try to save lives and not to lose them. Within our county, DuPage County has a very, very good and functional crisis services line. It's just a few blocks away from here, and they have 24-hour support and services available. So that's something we can access as well. I want to end on the note of hope that we are all here as a community, and it is a communal obligation on every one of us to address it, to make each other aware of mental health issues within our community, provide the help that is needed, and access the care that we are going to be providing here within ICW. With that, I'm going to end, and we'll be open to questions towards the end after Sister Hadia.
Jazakallah. Can I just add, mashallah, Dr. Huma, you spoke about these things in such a graceful manner, and I personally, if this adds any validity to what she is saying, as you all might know, I am a college student myself, and I know a community of sisters and brothers as well who are struggling through a lot of these issues, and like you said, they struggle to bring these issues up to their own parents. And there is a weight that we carry because of the social media and the constant exposure of difficulties and adversities that we're facing. And a lot of times, it's very unfortunate to see my own friends struggling on their own. So if, of course, like from my perspective, what I'm seeing is that this is a much needed conversation, that we are all here, alhamdulillah, that you are all here, jazakallah again, to work on this issue, because this is one that needs to 100% be worked on. So jazakallah khair, Dr. Huma. And now I want to introduce our final speaker. And alhamdulillah, I've had the opportunity to work with her at the Mass ICNA convention, and I actually had the privilege of announcing her there as well for our youth girls programs. But she is a licensed therapist, and she's worked with majority of her clients have been refugees, immigrants, and knowing myself too as a daughter of immigrants, it's very difficult for us to even go through these issues on our own. So having her in our community is 100% a blessing. So without further ado, please welcome Hadia Zarzour.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. Actually, this is, I've been here several times, and the last time was right before COVID. Such a warm space to be at, so I'm really happy to be here. How are we feeling after hearing about all of this? Especially suicide, actually. In the past, I would say, sometimes, even when people hear about the statistics, they feel like, yeah, maybe not close to us. You know, like even when we're saying that it is a big issue with the Muslim youth, they still feel like, no, maybe it's not that close. But actually, I have to tell you, not to scare you, but really to take this very, very seriously. That in the past, I would say, from September to November, in only half an hour away from here, I would say half an hour or like 45 minutes, we've had 4 suicide deaths. 4. I'm working with 2 families out of 4, and then you think about also the community, their friends, and how that affected them. So it's not only the family of the people who died. So inshallah, this is a inshallah blessed beginning of like what can we do and how to talk more about mental health so we can prevent suicide. Now, I'm a therapist. I'm not a doctor. I don't prescribe medication. My story with mental health actually started with me struggling with a mental illness, it started with anxiety, and then I had OCD. You know those people who wash a lot, and people think that, oh, they're so clean. I mean, I'm Syrian, so maybe they didn't really pay attention to that. They're like, oh, she's very clean, so it's like part of the culture. But that wasn't really the reality. I really struggled with, I would say, severe OCD. Now the role of my parents were so important. I was 15 at the time, so that, I mean, at that time, the stigma was huge in Syria, more than 20 years. But my family was so supportive, and they reached out and they found a therapist. And actually, because of how that helped me, I still say Allah Yajzi Khair. He was a Moroccan therapist. I don't know where he is now. And I worked with him for almost, I think for 8 months. And because of that, I decided that I want to give this freedom, if I could say, to people and help them heal and feel happy the same way that he made me feel really basically healthy. So I'm gonna end here on a light note. So in general, people feel really kind of worried when I know we're talking about mental health, but still people feel like it's a heavy topic. So when we think about it as in general, like it's health. Part of it is illness. So we all need to be psychologically healthy. It's like when we think about physical illness, but then there is the physical health with the immunity, strong immunity system. So what is, according to WHO, the mental health is like a state of well-being in which everyone realizes their own potential. Like, so who am I? What are my abilities? What can I offer? How can we cope with stresses? So let's say we have like new stresses in our lives. They always come up. How can we cope with them? And how can we be productive and contribute to the community that we live in? So it's really about how we feel, think, and develop relationships. How does that feel when you read it? Maybe it's not that scary, right? It's actually something that's really very positive. So this is really the bigger umbrella of mental health. It's about really feeling psychologically healthy. Now, some things happen in life. So sometimes it's genetic, like what happened to me. I would say genetic. I know some people who had like severe anxiety in my family. So that's the biological factor. And then there are life experiences. As Sister Aisha said, I work with refugees who who faced war. So that's also affect, of course, people went through traumatic events. So they developed symptoms and illnesses. And that goes with also lifestyle and life circumstances like deaths, illnesses, divorces. So all of those happen to everybody, right? It's part of life. It's even, part of our challenges. Actually, let me get to. Yeah, what I want to say. It's part of our life, and it's part of even the tests that we go through. So when we think about this, there's this verse when Allah says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ. It's going to come like later in the slide, but because I was just talking about this, so I thought I'll mention it. So Allah say, I will test you. بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ. So he started with fear, which really connects to the idea of like worries and overthinking, worrying about the future. So Allah mentioned fear as the first ibtila in the same ayah, in the same verse that talks about death and talks about losses. So when we think about it like that, it helps us also put things in perspective of like, why is this happening to me? Why did I have to have OCD and have my family struggle? Why the other person is struggling with this bipolar disorder? The other person has like substance abuse or addiction issue. So that would help us. And when we know it's a challenge, then we need also to look for resources to help. Like when we say, like if you have diabetes, you go on to ask for treatment. You wouldn't just say, okay, I'm not sure, I'm not going to tell anyone. This is really embarrassing. So usually, and this doctors here mentioned, the stigma and why do people not ask for help? Because of the stigma. We all think like, what is this? People will say bad things about me. And I'm here, in front of you, telling you, like even when I came here, like I remember some of my friends used to say, please don't share with people that you had OCD, and I was like, what do you mean? How do I expect them to come to me for help? And I feel ashamed to say that I had this struggle. So, like there's a huge stigma about it. I mean, so how do we change the stigma? By keep talking about it, like what we're doing now. Also, I'm going to just mention, for the sake of time, just some of those barriers for people seeking services is also the language barrier. And I'm here to tell you that there are many, many Muslim professionals, Muslim therapists, and Muslim psychiatrists who speak different languages, who are here in the Chicagoland area that we can connect you to. So that's also very important to know that someone speaks the language and understand the culture. There's also now this trend with the teenagers about diagnosing themselves. So sometimes they feel some symptoms and they go online and they say, oh, I have this, I have that. And when we speak about let's say physically, we can't really do that, right? We go to a doctor and we ask them, we tell them the symptoms, and they help us diagnosing what we have. So we also need to, go to an expert, as the doctor said. Confidentiality is very important, and subhanAllah, it's part of our deen, confidentiality, like amanat al-majlis, the amana of we're gathering, we're not supposed to tell about any conversation. So also, legally, we know that we always tell people that it's confidential. Fear of treatment, also sometimes people will say, I don't want to take medication. And we tell them, it's not all cases needs medication. And that's why there's always this work between a psychiatrist and a therapist to make sure that, we work as a team for the best, or to make sure that we serve the client well. Dr. Huma talked about the idea of the body and the mind and the soul balance, and I'll end with this. This is actually an actual screenshot that I took from my phone. It's a reminder from my dentist to come. It's like every 6 months they send me this text to come. It's time for you to come for a checkup. And I'm really looking forward to this day when we have texts on our phones from our therapists who tell us, like, come on, it's time to check up. How are you doing psychologically? I mean, we won't reach to that point until we keep talking about it and until we understand how important mental health is. So the more that you talk, I know we don't have a lot of people here. Thank you so much for you coming here. And we're hoping for more. But I would say every single one of you know at least 50 people. So spread the news. Tell them, what were you doing Friday night? Oh, I was like at the masjid hearing about a very interesting topic. So tell them, spread the news. The more we talk about it, the more we have awareness, then we'll be able to prevent. Now we are in crisis, actually. We're here. We want to get to prevention and early intervention. And we can't really do that until we talk about it. And the last thing, as you know, the theme of mass conference this year was "Inna ma'al usri yusra," with hardship comes ease, and I hope we are able to be the ease, bring the ease to people's hardships, because each one of us will go through hardships in our lives. So inshallah, we'll all be the ease. Thank you so much for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah again. Thank you so much. You always, definitely, you will lighten the mood, and our youth girls were definitely in need of that. So, alhamdulillah for that. Before we begin the Q&A section of this program, I do want to make some very important announcements, and I will go through this twice because I think this is much needed for our community. Alhamdulillah, our community here at ICW, our leaders have begun to work on this issue, and we are going to start services at ICW as follows. So we will have weekly free consultation and mental health treatment program with Dr. Huma and Dr. Golewale. So both of them are accessible to our community, which is a huge blessing. And they will, of course, they will take both members with or without insurance. So it does not matter if you have insurance. And then all appointments are going to be needed to be made via email through this email. So it's ZANTAR, Zanthar at ICWonline.org, or through ICW office through Marwan Kasak. So those are the points of contacts. If you need to write this down, please do. It's ZANTAR at ICWonline.org. And then Dr. Huma is available every Friday, 2:30 to 4 p.m. And then Dr. Golewale is available every Saturday, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. So if you ever need any assistance, whether it's with your children or with yourself, or regarding any community member, please feel free to reach out. These are amazing and alhamdulillah, much needed services here at ICW. And of course, the team will also provide resources and opportunities as they are needed on the as-needed basis. So then, without further ado, let's begin the question and answer section of this program. And I want everyone to at least think of one question, because looking around, I can tell that either we have sisters or brothers or children, someone that we know that has struggled. And I can tell you myself on a personal note, definitely, I struggle with anxiety. It's a very common thing. So what we have here is very important. Do we have anyone who wants to go first? And
Yes, we have one in the back right here.
Okay, perfect.
Assalamu alaikum. Really grateful to Sister Huma and Brother Mazher for sharing their insights with us, with this community. Really grateful to you for coming down. I just want to touch base what Dr. Huma said about connecting with children as a parents. I think this is a vast topic itself. It doesn't justify just taking 5 minutes talking about it. I would actually encourage you to come to us again and just talk on this topic and how to connect with our children, because me as a parent, I know how important it is to connect with my children, but sometimes I don't know how to approach them. So I think there's a topic needs to be discussed with the community, and so I would encourage, and I really appreciate if you can make time and also attention to our administration so that we can have this session with you and talk only on this topic. Maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, something like that, because this is a vast topic,
I totally agree. It's not easy to condense all the information in 20 minutes, and there are so many. I mean, each and every condition out there, we can have separate talks on. And I'm hoping going forward, we can be making these available for you, how to communicate, maybe even running some workshops that will be helpful. As part of the work that we do here at ICW. So we are listening, and we'll take that into account, and hoping we can, bring in more experts besides me as well, who work in the community and can help you and direct you in that communication process. I think a very basic, simple step to remember is to use your dinner table well. Right? When you're sitting down in the evening, everybody needs to talk about, the devices have to be off at that moment, and you have to learn to ask them, how was your day? A simple question can open, if they just ask and if they just respond by, it's fine, kind of a thing. You have to probe. Every child is different. and how one child interacts and responds is different from how the other one will. So if you need help and guide, you're more than welcome to reach out, and we can kind of direct you, because what I can say about one person may not fit another person. In psychiatry, we have to have what we call as individualized plans, and what works for one does not work for another person. So yeah, I appreciate your comments, and will definitely take that into consideration.
Did anyone else have questions?
Yes, there's one here.
Assalamu alaikum. I have observed that the substance abuse in the schools make the kids mentally ill, because some of the kids, they were very smart. They were scoring high. But when it always happened before high school. If somebody controlled them up to high school, my observation is that they are good. They learn good, but the high school up to high school, it's a very important years at the age of 11. I always tell, if anybody is having their kids, I said, keep and watch. If he's going after 11 years or 10 years, keep a close watch him, because 10 or 11 years old has a very bad experience, because I have moved from one of the best school in Bloomingdale, but still those schools have big problem. Those problems start in school only. Some of them recoup, they go to college, then they live a good life. But what is this? Because the family, there is no background for mental illness, they are fine. But school, substance abuse make them mental ill. Is there any connection between substance abuse in the beginning and the following mental illness? Thank you.
I will direct this comment and question as well, but this is open to discussion. I just want to make that clear to Dr. Golewale. I noticed you were nodding along, so I just wanted to hear.
If he has a question to any specific person, then
Okay.
So there are two things to this. The one point that we need to know is why substance abuse happens and when does it happen. Substance abuse typically starts in young age, like as you said, right? Because in the brain, there is two ways of connection, top down and bottom up. If the prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain, if it has this ability to control the impulse and the urge to resist the desire, then you're able to control your desire, which generally happens, like the brain continues to grow till the age of 25, 26, it's still growing. And so during that time, we don't have the control over our desires, we just go and do it impulsively. We can't think of the consequences. We don't want to think consequences because we are thrill seekers at that age. So there is no top-down control. The front part of the brain is not controlling the lower part of the brain, the lower brain, which is thrill seeker brain. But then as they grow, and once the prefrontal cortex takes over, then we have better control. But by that time, it's already too late. But what we know now is that if you abuse substances, then it makes some changes, structural changes and chemical changes in your brain that make you susceptible for mental illnesses. And the opposite is also true. If you have mental illness, it puts you at a higher risk for substance abuse. So the stats tell us that 50% of the people who have substance abuse problem have mental illness. And mental illness people are at least 50% at higher risk for substance abuse. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my understanding.
And I do want to give the opportunity to Dr. Huma too.
Thank you for the question. I would second what Dr. Golewale kind of brought up, the executive function piece of it, where in kids it's not developed. They're going through growth. The brain hardwiring, in simple words, is still happening. So impulsivity is very common. And when things are freely available, they don't think about the consequences. I'm going to try it just one time, maybe another time. That's where your role as a parent is to be a little bit more vigilant. Who are they hanging out with? What are they doing? Are you testing them? I think parents should be drug testing their kids regularly, till you develop that trust in them. It's a vulnerable age and it's a tough age and we all make mistakes. And the kids make mistakes too. You cannot be reprimanding them and just pointing fingers at them every time something happens. If they need help, they need to seek help. Now, can we change the high school system where this, is so rampant? We can't do that. But can you change what's happening in your home and how you're interacting with your child? Yes, you can do that. Can you bring them to a safe place where they feel like they are heard and there are other things that engage them much better than substance abuse? Yes, you can do that. And we are hoping that our community here is going to grow and develop better. And there will be more resources for them so that they feel more welcomed here. And they feel, there is something I can do on a Friday night, right? We are running a lot of programs here. We have the Young Explorers program, and then we have the Influencers program here, where kids for different age groups can come in and they can spend their Fridays well, rather than just being at their friend's night, place along. You have to be involved in your kid's life, and I'm saying that not just to you, but also to myself, because I'm a mom and I have 3 kids. So we have to engage our kids on a regular basis. Yeah.
Jazakallah. And I see another question back there, so go ahead.
Oh yes, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. First of all, Jazakumullah khairan for coming here and giving us the talks and the advice. I guess my question is, what could I do if I know a friend or a relative is suffering from mental health? They themselves know that they are suffering from mental health, but they're not seeking help because, as you mentioned, because of the stigma. How can I help them?
Jazakallah, Sister Fatima. And I'll hand the mic to Dr. Huma, and then, of course, floor's open.
When somebody in your family is struggling and they are in denial that there is something going on, I hope I understood your question correctly, right?
Yes, a friend or relative.
Okay. The first thing is to listen to them and talk to them and see if they would be willing to just come in for a consultation. You have to frame it properly, that you don't have to tell them that you have to, let's go and get you checked out for you have a mental health condition. You can frame it properly by saying, maybe you're struggling with some issues. Maybe there are things that can be changed if you meet with somebody on a regular basis. Maybe we can talk it out, you and me together, go there, and whatever information we are going to share there is going to be confidential. So when it comes to treatment, especially in cases of adults, you cannot force adults into treatment, you know that, right? We cannot even force them into hospitalization, we can at the most keep them in the hospital for 72 hours, and after that, unless it's court ordered, they can leave the hospital. You can only try. So what would be good would be helping them reach out to the sources which are out there, bringing them in, getting them in confidence and letting them know that we can just go in for a consultation and see what they say. Sometimes it's a matter of just clicking with one person, one therapist, and they would be willing to give that a try. So I would say not to give up, to reach out and tell them, help is available, let's try it out, let's go out and see if it makes a change. Some people are sometimes terrified that they're going to be on multiple medications. Oh, the doctor is going to put me on so many medications, I'm going to be like a zombie. No, I don't practice medicine like that. We want to make sure that we put you on the least possible that will help you. You have to think about as a quality of life issue, right? How can you improve the quality of your life? The way you're living right now is not productive. You're not getting anywhere with it. So maybe we can just go in for a consultation and see if it makes a difference. Sometimes they will listen to leaders in the community, an imam in the masjid. Reaching out to the imam in the masjid may be a better way for them to engage and connect. Okay?
Jazakallah.
We only have time for 2 more questions. We're going to pray right on time at 8, inshallah.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. I have 2 questions then. So one is, with the pandemic, there was one thinker who said the pandemic can be put in three categories. The first is the physical health. The second was when the economists made noise, and economic health. And the third component is now the mental health. due to social isolation. So can you speak to that a little bit? Because it looks like the mental health component is going to be with us an awfully long time and is actually an accelerant. Okay? Two, clinically, what's the difference between anxiety and intensity? Do very intense people get very anxious? And does that lead to mental disorder? Or I'm not sure what the term is.
Jazakallah for your question. I'll hand it over to, I think the second question. Yes. Okay.
So your first question was mental health as a result of the pandemic. I can go by the statistics that I am seeing in my office. There has been a huge surge in anxiety disorders post-pandemic. And it is across the board in children, women. There is a huge surge of domestic abuse and trauma issues happening in women because the men are home all the time, and we have seen an increase in that. But we as a society overall are resilient, and a lot of us will be able to bounce back. And there is going to be that percentage who is still going to be affected. You have to think about the pandemic as a stressor, and a severe stressor. Any severe stressor can put you in that situation where it can affect you. Now, your second question was about the intensity and anxiety. Now, if you can elaborate, I wasn't clear what intensity means. Anxiety has physical manifestations and mental manifestations. Anxiety expresses itself physically in terms of feeling a choking sensation, your mind racing, a lot of thoughts going on head. And anxiety is about worry. You think about 1,000 possibilities, what ifs that go in your head. What if this, what if that, what if this? So that is what anxiety is. Intensity can be passion. Intensity can be what you really want to do correct and right. Some amount of intensity makes us function much better. We need that. Type A people are very intense people, and they get a lot accomplished because of what they do. So, I would word it that way. Intensity may not lead to anxiety. These are two separate constructs.
Okay, Jazakallah. And I think that was the last two questions, so I'm just going to take a quick moment to say again, Jazakallah khair for everyone being here. This is the first step. Being a part of this conversation is the first step to answering, all of the issues that we deal, especially with our youth who deal with the mental health illnesses. I do want to quickly say two more announcements. That we have the coffee and meet and greet right afterwards. So after Salah, we're going to definitely meet, and you can ask all of these questions and meet definitely all of our wonderful resources. But do take advantage of the resources provided earlier. And of course, if you need to meet with them one-on-one, as I've given the times earlier, Friday and Saturday, they are both available. Or available at their times. But yes, reach out if you need anything. So with that, Jazakallah khair. And then I want to say one more thing. Sister Zahra has our pre-assessment forms for mental health issues. If you're feeling anything, I want you to definitely take one form home and definitely fill it out, because you would surprise yourself. You would not know. So Jazakallah khair, everyone. Thank you again. Please join me in giving everyone a round of applause, and thank you yourself. Assalamu alaikum.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.